So, welcome back to part two of conflict in a relationship. And what we're going to be looking at now is really conflict in a relationship as a nice guy, which I feel a lot of men fall into that category. And that applies to you then if conflict really triggers you. This doesn't just have to be romantic relationships, this could be friendships, business relationships, and you almost want to do everything or anything to avoid the conflict. And you said something interesting just at the end of the previous video. Can you repeat that about if you are a nice guy, if you deal with your conflict, how did you phrase it?
So basically, if you're a nice guy and you learn how to deal with conflicts, or you understand why conflicts exist in the first place, that is going to be what puts you out of being a nice guy in the core. Because we can talk about specific things the nice guy does and things that you need to avoid to not look like a nice guy. But this is not going to work on the core of why you are a nice guy. So yeah, I think if you find yourself as a nice guy, or if the descriptions of a nice guy fits with you, you definitely want to stick around because stick around because it's going to be really relevant for you.
I mean, this is really powerful because it cuts straight to the heart of the matter then, right? And I remember for me, that was, huge, just fucking huge. Like in all my relationships, in my business relationships, everywhere I went, I just wanted to avoid conflict. And in the beginning, that wasn't really that obvious to me because I didn't have the awareness to really see everything I'm doing is to prevent the conflict. But then when stuff would come up, like I would feel the discomfort in my body. And because I wasn't used to expressing, let's say, when a boundary was crossed, I would kind of gobble it up. And then at some point it would leak out in passive aggressiveness. I would make like dumb statements. Or, when I lent people, that's when I was really young. I would lend people things, they would borrow stuff from me. And then as soon as they would do something that angered me, that crossed the boundary with me, I was like, now give me that fucking thing back. Just really petty. And so, yeah, having been a nice guy, I've noticed the more I integrated, because the way we can look at it is really, if you're avoiding conflict, that just means you're very much out of balance. And so for a lot of nice guys, we're very much in touch with our heart. We're very considerate. Like we are in touch more with our feelings, I would say in general. We're more empathetic, right? And so that's kind of become our crutch. And that's kind of where the imbalance is. We're very focused on that side. But then when conflict arises, when it's about let's meet our own needs, that's when we tend to see like, oh, I have a weakness there. Like I can't really do that. Being selfish sounds like the worst thing possible. And that's why we then get triggered by other people that are very focused on meeting their own needs. Let's call them selfish, right? Or very self-driven. We tend to see that and we say, oh, fuck that person, like really bad. He's walking all over people, just concerned with himself. And that's the thing that then triggers us. And it's only triggering because we haven't incorporated that aspect in ourselves. We don't know how to bring back the balance and be able to withstand conflict, to go into it and say, this is not okay. Like I am important here. I need to make sure my needs are met too.
And I think the word nice here is important to talk about because the nice guy or getting out of the nice guy syndrome is not the same as not being nice anymore. You can still be a nice person, let's call it that way. But if you are truly aligned with this nice that you are or that you believe is the right thing to do, you will have a lot of conflicts because you're going to defend the things that you think are important. So in the end, it's not about being you were too nice and now I'm going to be an asshole, let's call it that way, which is what we see in social media. You go from being this super okay guy, everything's fine, to no, now I'm going to learn how to just say no to everyone and fuck everyone, just think about myself. But it's still not a line. And then conflicts will come either way. If you're a nice guy or if you're, especially if you're an asshole, But I think the important thing here, at least the way I see it, is being in alignment with what you believe and not being so caught up in the idea of pleasing others and leaving yourself aside. So that's why the alignment comes in. Because the nice guy, he seems as nice because he just wants to please. He's a pleaser. He's doing things to make sure that everyone is having fun, everyone is enjoying, the girl is having a good time, she doesn't feel the polarity, she doesn't feel anything negative. And at the same time, they don't see that sometimes this polarity, this negative part, is what creates the attraction. Or it is what builds a long-term relationship or a friendship, you know, because then the other person can see you being yourself. They can fully meet you as you are, with everything around you, the things that are good, the things that are bad, the things that they agree with, the things that they don't agree with. But you're coming out and you're expressing yourself as your true self, in the sense. So you're not trying to spare anyone from having a bad time, if that's not in alignment with your core. And that's when I think that understanding that conflict is an important part in any type of relationship will allow you also to express yourself, to say the things that are important to you, to generate conflict, but not conflict as most of nice guys would have, which is like this hold, don't say anything, hold. What the fuck? Give me my pen back. What? Did you do this to me? Me? No, this is my ball. Come. Stop playing, guys. This is mine. I'm gonna go back home. It burst because they are unable to express, digest the situation and see really what's going on.
Yeah, I think the main thing is just to even be aware of what do you really want? What do you want? Because that's the thing we're trying to avoid so hard in that. We try to get away from the focusing on what are my own needs and wants. And I've had this in my family, even with my brother. And I think for me, it was a little bit different, but I can see it in both my brothers. Everyone there is a nice guy. But they don't even know what they want in their life in general. I at some point sat down and said, I want to travel the world. Like I just visualized and I was like, I had all these goals and like, I'm going these places, you know? And they never did. And I asked them like, what do you want out of life? And they couldn't give me an answer. They didn't fucking know. Right? And so I think that's really the thing. Like because we don't know what we want, we do get something out of being nice. That's the thing. The reason why we're being nice is because usually this is what we've learned. It's a learned behavior. If we give the other person what they want, if we please them, then on some level we're going to get something back. And so when we don't get that, that's when it kind of bubbles over, when it blows off the top. Right? That's when we say, give me the fucking pen back, give me this back, because we're not getting it back. And the other thing too is then we see people, if we're the nice guy, we see other people that meet their own needs, that know how to take care of themselves. We see them as selfish, which is really crazy. Right? We have such a distorted lens that we can't even see that. And so that's also one of the reasons why a lot of nice guys, I think, then swing to the other extreme, because they say like, nobody's caring for me, nobody gives a fuck about me. So then I find these people like Julian Blanc, or what's this like kickboxer, the guy that blew up, what's his name? Andrew Tate, right? And then they see this content and we're like, oh shit, this is it, I gotta be like that. So they swing from one extreme to the other extreme, which is not to say that this is a bad thing. Right? In order to know what balance is, sometimes we have to swing from one to the other extreme. And then once we're there, we can kind of go back and move more towards the middle, where we're actually balanced and aligned. And then I think what really changes, it's no longer, because there's a difference to me between being nice and being kind. Right? Kind, really, to me, that shows the heart is involved. Like I'm actually in touch with my heart and with myself. Being nice feels more like it's a mental, like at least the way I feel it, right? Nice has more of this connotation of like it's a mental attitude, and it can be fabricated. Like it's a fabricated thing. It's not actually genuine. And kind is when it's really coming out. And the only way you can be kind is when you start meeting your own needs, when you have something to give. How can you be kind if you're always in lack and you need and you need and you need and you don't even want to admit to yourself that you need?
Yeah, the wording of nice, it's a funny one because I heard that at 2 times when I was in Georgia. The girl said something like, "Oh, but yeah, you are such a nice guy." And that triggers me because I'm like, I'm not nice. What the fuck are you talking about? And that triggered me. And I said, like, saying that to me really triggers me. And she was like, why? It's a compliment. And I was like, how? What? How is that a compliment? Yeah. So as I was saying, probably it's a bit too dark, guys. I'm sorry. The light just went off. As I was saying, they said that. And really, in their intentions, they didn't want to make any like say that I'm a nice guy in the terms of what I'm used to correlate to a nice guy, which was funny, but for me it was triggering because it makes me feel like this, oh, I worked so hard not to be a nice guy. And then you come and say that to my face like that. It's like, no. You can't do this
And
shit.
boom, we have conflict.
So, I mean, yeah, I understand what you said in terms of nice and kind. And I think the wording, yeah, is important and might have a difference between them. But for me, yeah, it's like, okay, kind, nice for me, it doesn't matter, you know. It's like, it's more like the attitude that I'm saying in terms of alignment. But yeah, at the same time, it also means that you do care about people around you. You do care about specific things that are not only for yourself, that make sense in that moment. And even if that's something that you don't want to do in the moment, but you believe is the right thing for you to do. So there are situations in your life where you need to make decisions that you need to take into account, okay, is that the best decision for me? Is that the best decision for the social group that I'm in? So sometimes you are in, I don't know, like your parents' anniversary, and then they say something that is super triggering for you, and you're like, no, bro, no, you can't say this shit. And then you start the fight in the middle of their anniversary, and it's like, oh no, there he comes, this guy again. He's always speaking his mind every time. And it's like, sometimes it's also fine to just be like, okay, I'm gonna play cool, and I'll just let it go, you know? Because I can see that in this moment, my awareness in this moment, it's not appropriate. I don't want to go there in this moment. Sometimes you want to, well, that's the thing. That's where the nuances comes in, because it's like there's no proper way to be. There's no proper way to behave in this sense. And the nice guy thinks that there is a way, that there is a best way. And that is the way that is going to lead him to have a better life, to have a better relationships, avoid conflict and all of that. So being open to the idea that you might just not know, and the only thing that you can do is in the moment access the things that make sense for you and act on that is the right choice in that moment. And then you go from that. There was another thing that I wanted to talk about and I think this avoiding conflicts and this nice guy behavior syndrome, call it like that, also gets in the way of meeting new people, also gets in the way of you going and saying hi to someone that you like, also gets in the way of you expressing yourself fully. Because for this type of behavior, you want to make sure that the other person also thinks the same or also feel the same before you express yourself, because you want to avoid, again, the conflict of I like you, you don't like me, oh, that's bad, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, it's this right and wrong way, as if there is a universal right way and a universal wrong way. And I think that was something that held me back in the beginning a lot. And especially when I started to get into, like when I left for Canada and I went into pickup and then spirituality. And I noticed more and more how this kept me trapped, like this way of being that my family kind of had developed, or that was kind of like part of the way my family interacted with me, where I was this nice guy and I was kind of in the situation of, okay, I really need to choose now to be either going my own way and focus on the thing that I really want to do, that I know is the right thing for me to do, even though this feels really uncomfortable, or I had to go back and fall into that frame of this is what my family wanted me to do. And so I think especially with increased awareness, this is why we have to say, like, this path is not necessarily comfortable from the beginning. Like, even though your awareness increases and you can see things more clearly, at the same time, that means you're also going to see where you need to do something, and you also understand how it's going to make the other person feel, right? And that oftentimes prevents us from then doing, like, living our own authentic expression, because we know, oh shit, this is going to make the other person feel that way, and I want to avoid that, right? I want to avoid how I react to them feeling bad. That's something that kept me trapped for a really, really long time. And so that's why we say conflict as a night, like, that's the thing. If you integrate that, if you integrate the side of you that can be selfish, that can be meeting your own needs, that is really going to change the whole relationship with yourself and with other people. That's going to set you free from being a nice guy. And it's funny, like, even the term nice guy can be triggering, right? Like, it's like you try so hard not to be a nice guy, and then you get triggered by being called a nice guy, and then we also have to let that go again, right? So I would even go as far as saying, if you are a nice guy, the reason why conflict is there in your relationships and why you're struggling with it so much is because you will have to integrate it. It's like life trying to show you you're so imbalanced, and it's time to bring that thing home. So if you're a nice guy right now, you're trying to avoid conflict, I can tell you right now, there's going to be more conflict. You will be put in situations with women, with business partners, with family, where more conflict is going to arise. Until you've sit on your ass and said, okay, I'm finally going to deal with this now. I'm going to integrate this. I'm going to look at this. Yes, I can also be selfish, and I have my own needs, and I need to meet them. That's how important this is.